Hey, geeks and nerds, Mike here. It's Christmas Eve, and we're all getting settled as we await the arrival of Santa Claus himself, or as us Whovians know him,
Father Christmas, Santa Claus, or, as I've always known him, Jeff.
With Christmas Day coming up, we are of course going to be inundated with Christmas movie after Christmas movie. And if you're anything like me, you're going to be spending a good portion of the day watching the Alastair Sim version of A Christmas Carol, whether you like it or not. So, I wanted to take a few minutes to hopefully save you by sharing some of my favorite Christmas specials. And if you're anything like me who actually doesn't like Christmas movies in general, they're too long, and frankly, I tend to burn through Christmas very quickly. Then have I got material for you. Now, we're going to start with what's probably the single greatest Christmas special I've ever seen, and is the closest we're going to get to the Muppet Shared Universe with 1987's A Muppet Family Christmas. Now, I mean no disrespect when I say this toward a Muppet Christmas Carol, but I'm sorry, this is the best Muppet film ever released. Now, this was originally a TV special airing in 1987, and if you've never heard of it, there's a very simple reason for that. Sadly, this special never made it past DVD. But on the plus side, as with every special that I'm going to be talking about, these are all available on YouTube, and I will be sharing the links down below. Now, this is basically, Fozzie decides to bring the Muppet Show gang to surprise his mom over the Christmas holidays, because as far as he knows, she's going to be spending time at her farmhouse alone over the holiday. He doesn't know that she's rented her farmhouse to Doc from Fraggle Rock, who wants to have a nice quiet Christmas. And meanwhile, she's actually booked surf lessons and plane tickets to Bermuda. So Fozzie and the crew show up. She has to give up her vacation to get them all settled and taken care of. And then the Sesame Street crew shows up. And just for good measure, they find a way to crowbar in Fraggle Rock. And when I say crowbar, keep in mind, this is not a negative thing, as frankly, it was the 80s. Nobody cared a whole lot about story technique. If they wanted to get a property into a film, so help them, they were going to do it. Now, the best thing here is, this is pure Christmas, the gathering of family, carols, present exchanges, all squeezed into 45 minutes, so you're not beaten over the head with it, and it ends with the final television appearance, sadly, of Jim Henson, who would die several years after this was originally aired of cancer. Next up, we're actually going to go very, very far back in time. Now, for those of you who were born young enough to never know life without the internet, before we had podcasts, we had these things called radio shows. Now, these predominantly ran from the late 1920s or so up to about the late 1950s. And one of the most prominent of which was The Shadow. This was the character of Lamont Cranston, who somehow, someway, and I say this because depending on whether you read The Shadow magazine or listened to the radio show, it's debatable as to how he gets his powers. But he has the ability to cloud men's minds through the power of hypnosis. Now, the specific episode that I'm referring to aired on December 24th, 1939, and is called The Stockings Were Hung. Now, in this episode, it's essentially the Shadow's version of A Christmas Carol, as in both his identity as the Shadow and Lamont Cranston. He sets out to help newspaper boy. Yes, there was a time when newspapers were sold by young boys standing on street corners. We're going to skip all the inappropriate jokes. I'm aware of how that phrasing sounded. So they discover that newspaper boys, Spike Grover. Look, it's Christmas Eve. I'm tired. I'm amazed I can talk. Spike Grover's family is in trouble, very serious trouble, as mom is out of the picture and dad has gone missing. He's been basically beaten with it in an inch of his life to the point that he has no idea who he is, nor that he is actually the part owner of an importing company that has been stolen out from under him. As a result of this, the shadow basically goes all Ghost of Christmas Past on the villain of the hour's ass. I'm aware that I keep rhyming in this episode. Deal with it. And this is essentially, like I said, this is a version of A Christmas Carol. It's a version of A Christmas Carol I can goddamn tolerate. And finally, my third recommendation. This is the Christmas special that you have in your back pocket for if you're hosting a Christmas party and you hit the point where you're tired, you want to start cleaning up, and you just want everyone to leave. And for this, I recommend the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special. Again, this was another TV special that aired back in the 80s when everything was a toy commercial and companies and TV production studios were going to cash in on the holiday season. They didn't give a shit about how. From the moment this thing opens, when you hear the opening theme music, which is best described as the themes from He-Man, She-Ra, and Jingle Bells, all put into a blender for no reason whatsoever, you have a pretty good idea of the type of insanity you are in for. They basically all but kidnap 2 kids from Earth and bring them into Eternia, as well as stopping the show for the sole purpose of explaining that He-Man's mom is actually from Earth. And this is for the sole purpose of crowbarring Christmas into the story of He-Man. Because, again, it didn't matter how they did it. Skeletor gets infected with the Christmas spirit, and that in and of itself is more than enough reason to watch this glorious mess. And then they have the nerve to have She-Ra villain Hordak flying around in a helicopter that is the single most phallic thing I have ever seen in an 80s program. I can also speak from personal experience when I say, if you want to get people out of the room, put this thing on, they will leave. I have broken people at Christmas parties with this glorious insanity. So, with that, I hope these recommendations are helpful to you. These are the shows that I can't get through Christmas without. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up by saying, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I don't care what anyone says. So, Merry Christmas to all, and
keep the change, you filthy animal.
Don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, share this video with your friends, and drop us a line anytime you like.